without logbooks for your aircraft, it depreciates the aircraft. Depending on how old the aircraft is, how many hours, it could be anywhere from 20 to 50%.
Okay.
Because you can't show what's been done, and if you can't show, you have to redo those inspections.
Welcome to Own the Jet by Aspen Aero Group, where we share perspectives from some of the leading voices in private jet ownership and business aviation. I'm your host, Derek Savage, along with my co-host, Jason Spoor, president of Aspen Aero Group. Our guest today is Lisa Stewart from Camp Systems International. Lisa works with jet owners and their teams to make sure that they stay in the loop about every aspect of their jet's maintenance, compliance, and operational upkeep. Join us as we dive deep into the mechanics, mindset, and moments that define jet ownership. And together, we'll learn what it takes to own the jet.
Welcome, Lisa Stewart, to Own the Jet. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
What does Camp do? Why do I need to know about Camp as somebody that owns a jet?
Camp is basically a maintenance tracking system.
Okay.
We make sure that the maintenance that gets done on the aircraft is put into our system. We keep track of all your logbook entries. As maintenance is performed, we review those logbook entries, and then it allows the customer to go in and pull a due list so they can see what's coming due.
That sounds like something that the maintenance place that, like if I buy a jet, I'm going to have to hire a maintenance company or maintenance person or somebody is going to be in charge of maintenance. Is that something they buy or is that something I buy?
So usually the owner buys it.
Okay.
They might have a management company that's paying for it and managing their aircraft for them.
Gotcha.
But really what we do is we're keeping track of all that for them. So when they go into the service center, they can give the service center access to the camp, and now they can pull the due list themselves. They can say, okay, we need to perform these, all these inspections. Maybe there's service bulletins, ADs that come out, and they know by looking at camp what needs to be done. And so the owner doesn't have to be, hey, you need to do this. They can go into camp and pull it themselves and see what they need to do while the aircraft is down for maintenance.
Okay.
So
Yeah,
two questions.
Sure.
Is it as easy as the software entry? Is that something a pilot could do if a pilot's on staff versus a maintenance person?
Yeah, so the pilot could go in, they could update the times. They could also go pull the due list. If there's an inspection that they know is done, they can send us the logbook entries. We'll do everything for them. So the pilot doesn't have to do anything other than make sure that their last actuals are up to date, because that's how the due list is accurate.
Yep.
And then they make sure that we get the logbook entries as maintenance is performed.
Yeah. And the other thing you said was AD. What's that?
An AD is an airworthiness directive that comes directly from the FAA. So anytime the FAA puts something out on an aircraft that just says this needs to be performed, and usually if the FAA is putting it out, the OEM has already put it out as a service bulletin.
Right.
So
Yep.
And OEM is the manufacturer of the aircraft?
Yes, they're the original equipment manufacturer for that aircraft. So
Gotcha. So if they're putting it out as a service bulletin, you guys know it front and back.
Yes, and we work very closely with the OEMs. So if they have a service bulletin that's getting ready to come out, they usually kind of reach out to us and say, hey, we've got this coming out. Sometimes they'll even reach out to us and say, hey, we've got an issue with a starter generator, for instance. We know that it's a -3 that's effective. Can you kind of pull us everybody who has the -3 so that we can make sure that we reach out to them and so that they're aware the service bulletin's coming out, especially if it's something emergency. And I'm not saying that there's one like that, but they will do that on an important service bulletin.
Gotcha. So if I own the jet, and if I own my version of, or my copy of Camp or whatever, however you guys license it, that basically puts the power in my hands of the maintenance scheduling and all of the stuff for the aircraft. So if I, like, for instance, I'm thinking about, like, earlier I said, wouldn't the maintenance place take care of that, as opposed to, like, do I need to own that or do they need to own that? But if I own that, I can fire my maintenance place and hire another maintenance place, and I still got all the stuff, right?
That's correct. That's correct.
So that gives me a little bit more leverage, right?
Yeah, so it's a subscription. It's usually a yearly subscription that you would pay.
Sure.
And it's internet-based, so anywhere you have internet, you can access it. It's your data. So whenever you go to another maintenance facility, we just remove that other service center. And it could be a management company, it could be a service center. We assign the company to the aircraft. So if you switch, we just remove that old company and add a new company onto the aircraft. So now they have access to it. Nice. One of the important things is that as you go into the service center, a lot of times customers think, well, that service center is doing that maintenance for me. And so I don't need maintenance tracking because they're keeping track of it. What they don't realize is that service center is actually using CAMP to keep track of their maintenance. So we'll have a customer shut off CAMP because they're like, oh, I don't need to pay for that. And then they go into the service center and the service center says, I need access to CAMP. And they're like, oh, well, I canceled it. I don't need that. And they're like, well, that's how we know what's coming due on your aircraft.
Can they get camp back?
The data is always there.
Okay.
So even, let's say
Sorry, we erased your stuff.
No,
Good luck.
And it's historical. So if you've been on for 5 years and maybe somebody bought it and didn't keep it on a tracking system in 5 years, all we got to do is catch it back up. Everything stays there. It's a digital copy.
What happens if you don't? I mean, like, obviously, like, there are probably people that are, you said people cancel. So, like, there's probably people that try to, like, do all this without a system like CAMP. How does that work?
So one of the most important things about CAMP is we keep track of all revisions. So as the OEM puts out a revision to the maintenance manual, we keep track of that and we update the system as those revisions come out, or service bulletins or communiques or airworthiness directives. We update all of that for the customer. If you're doing this in a spreadsheet, now you've got to keep track of the revisions, what tasks have changed, what ADs have come out. And if you're not maintaining the correct revision, you're going to miss inspections.
But I mean, does it have like I don't know, my car's got a check engine light. Like what, I got a maintenance minder. Does the jet, this is like a big complex machine with a bunch of electronics in it. Does it not tell you what's wrong with it?
Well, there are some aircraft that do. They'll tell you that, oh, you have this inspection, there's this going on, or, you have a fault going on with your aircraft. But the problem is there are inspections that are due based on, it could be the part that's installed. So this jet might have a -3 and this one has a -4 for whatever part it is, a widget. And this one has a 3,000 hour requirement, but this one has a 4,000 hour requirement. Okay. So we actually look at that and we will set that up accordingly. Whereas the airplane, it's not going to know what serial number you have on. So it couldn't tell you what's going on unless you were constantly putting that information into the aircraft.
Gotcha.
So in other words, CAMP is taking what scheduled maintenance is coming up and projecting that.
Yes.
This is totally different than if we have a malfunction on the road and the airplane breaks. That of course is going to be reported to CAMP, but it's not something that's predictive.
That's
obviously. Correct. So, we'll get that fixed and then send the logbooks in.
Entry straight to CAMP.
Yep, and it'll be recorded. But the main pusher of CAMP is projecting out that maintenance. So from a seller buyer perspective, to drop it, which you talked about, would be tragic.
Yeah, and the one
tragic.
thing tragic. Yeah, you can't just pull over.
Now there's no how are we going to predict this? How are we going to look at this? With CAMP, it's easy to look ahead in 5 years. So here the buyer comes in, we look at 5 years out. This is what the next 5 years of this airplane looks like as far as from a scheduled maintenance.
Yeah, and that's a good point with the buyer, because whenever you're going to buy an aircraft, usually you have to do a pre-buy inspection, and a pre-buy inspection's it's a pretty complicated inspection that they do, and they have to review the logbook entries. And so if you don't have it on a tracking system, now you're having to dig through all those logbooks verifying that everything's done. Whereas if they have CAMP, now they can just go through CAMP. Those logbook entries are attached to every single task. So they can pull it up and see the task that was done, when it was performed. They can see the logbook entries. They can even go into history and see every time that inspection was done and every single time a logbook entry was sent in for it. So that makes that logbook research so much quicker. Even when going down for maintenance, it makes the logbook research quicker.
So. And then the buyer has a good idea of what he can anticipate the next 5 years financially.
Well, and because we have that backup, if they spill coffee on a logbook entry, they can just reprint it out of CAMP, and now they have a new logbook entry right out of the system.
So Jason, so if you're selling a jet, or if you're buying a jet, helping somebody buy a jet, are you like, as you're looking at available jets, are you looking for, hey, is this on CAMP or is this on some kind of maintenance program? I mean, and CAMP's, obviously CAMP's like the default, but I mean, there's other maintenance programs people can be on, but you're looking for that sort of stuff,
Absolutely, because if we can't see the predictive and we can't see the past, that's going to make things much more difficult. So
Yeah, because without logbooks for your aircraft, it depreciates the aircraft. Depending on how old the aircraft is, how many hours, it could be anywhere from 20 to 50%.
Okay.
Because you can't show what's been done, and if you can't show, you have to redo those inspections.
Okay, so
And
that gets expensive.
It does.
That sounds expensive.
So you want the
Yes.
backup for those logs.
Okay.
And having your aircraft on a tracking system like CAMP, it actually increases the value of your aircraft because
Yeah.
it's showing that you're maintaining it and that, the work is being performed, and it's a lot easier to go into CAMP and pull a do list or a status report or even an ADSB list to see what's being done on the aircraft than trying to dig through hundreds of pages of logbooks.
Gotcha. So is there stuff like the FAA wants to know about this? I mean, is there like compliance, a compliance like part of this that has to do with like obviously if you're going to take, if you're going to fly an aircraft or own an aircraft that flies, somebody in the government's going to want to know that all your stuff's up to snuff, right?
Well, and we have a lot of charter companies on our system.
Okay.
And we have, so those are Part 135, which is FAR Part 135. It's a lot stricter requirements that they have to be on.
Yeah.
So our system's actually very customizable. We base everything off of what the OEM puts out for their maintenance manual.
Right.
However, you might have your own program that you have to use for your charter company, or, because if you're using your aircraft for hire at all, you have additional inspections you have to do.
Yeah.
And we can add all those in. Maybe you added additional parts. Maybe you threw a DVD player in that has to be inspected every year. Maybe your coffee pot has to be inspected. So we can track all of that information. We can track your anniversary date so you don't forget to, send your wife an anniversary card.
I didn't know that was an option.
It is.
Oh.
It is an option. It's a
Good
very
to know.
important option.
Yeah.
So if you're selling camp to somebody that owns a jet, is it me, the jet owner, that has gets the notifications and everything, or is it somebody in my orbit that runs is the pilot getting this stuff? Like who's the end user here?
That's a great question, because usually the owner is actually the one who's responsible for making sure that maintenance is done on that aircraft.
Okay.
And so being able to have the management company on there and have your service center on there, it's extremely important that they all are able to view it. So really the biggest responsibility is making sure the times are up to date in the system. They can have their pilot do it, and they can do it from our app. It's super easy. But as long as those last actuals are being put in either by the owner, by the pilot, by the service center, that way the due list is accurate.
Yeah.
Everything else comes to us. We take care of it all. We'll review the logs. We'll make sure that everything is accurate. We make sure your revisions are up to date. We make sure any ADs, service bulletins, communiques are getting put into the system so that whenever they go into the service center, they know what's on their due list is accurate. So let's say you have an inspection that's due in July. You have one due in September. It allows you to schedule everything in August so that you're not having to keep downing your aircraft.
Right.
But we're going to take care of the review of the logbook entries, making sure, if we find an error in that logbook entry, we're going to reach out to the service center and say, hey, we noticed that you guys removed this part number, but we were showing that this part number was installed.
Yeah.
Was this a fat finger? Are we missing this information? We're not going to reach out to the owner, because then the owner is just going to have to reach out to the service center also. So we're going to take care of all of that in the background for that owner.
That's nice.
So that they're not having to figure all that information out as well.
Nice. So let's talk about, I want to kind of segue here too. You got started in this entire field because you were a Navy electrician, is that right?
That's correct.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit about that. What's your journey on getting all the way to being able to advise people on their maintenance for their private jets?
So I started out in the Navy as an aircraft electrician on S3s, which was a great plane to learn on because it was wires everywhere and they were always breaking. So I had to constantly, chase wires. Once I got out of the Navy, I went to A&P school at Kansas State University.
Okay.
And then I started working at Beechcraft as a mechanic, and I did that for about 7 years as a mechanic.
Nice.
and, it was dirty all the time. It was hot. It was cold. I was like, I think I want to do something else. And my inspector at the time, he was like, there's a group called FACTS, which was maintenance tracking at Beechcraft.
Yeah.
And he's like, I think you would really enjoy this. And so I applied. I got the job. Really enjoyed it. Did it for a year, and then camp bought our whole department out.
Okay.
But they brought us all. So I've been at camp since '07. And if you talk to any one of our analysts, we average about 20 years of aviation experience.
Okay.
These aren't, and they specialize on their aircraft model. So when you're calling the analyst, you're not just calling a call center. You're not calling somebody who's just inputting data. You're calling somebody who's worked on aircraft, who's been doing maintenance tracking for years. We have some of our analysts have been doing this for 30 years.
Yeah.
That's a long time. They know the aircraft. They understand what's going on.
Yes. Correct me if I'm wrong here, but engines are probably like the biggest thing that you want to make sure you take care of because they're the most expensive part of the jet.
Absolutely.
So what can you tell me about monitoring and or maintaining engines that maybe you guys would look at very specifically?
So we actually are the only tracking system that does engine health monitoring.
Okay.
And what that does is it trends the data that's coming through. So it'll monitor the altitude, airspeed, oil temperature, fuel flow, and it trends that data and how it's performing on that engine. So maybe maybe the battery's starting to die, and it's going to let you know before you end up with a hot start, because now you're going to have to do a bore scope and you're going to have to inspect everything in the engine.
I don't know what any of that means, but it's terrifying.
And vibration.
And vibration, yes.
Yep.
So it lets you know that there's something going on with your aircraft before you end up with something catastrophic with your engine.
Yeah. And that's not, when you say catastrophic, you don't just mean total engine failure, but it could be, something that ends up being really expensive that you have to replace,
Exactly.
right?
Yes.
So, that's important.
Yeah, it's very important because your engine, it could take you from, maybe a $30,000 item instead of having to pay like $700,000 for a complete engine overhaul or things like that. So
if
it's trending.
Yeah, go ahead.
How often do you run the report, though? How often is that data taken?
So depending on the aircraft, typically, and some are manual. So it could be that the pilot, it gets up to cruise altitude and he manually writes it down and uploads it. And it could be every flight. It could be every other flight. But then we have aircraft that automatically download. And we have a whole group that is monitoring and reviewing that trend data, making sure that if there's anything, and it's people. The information's there, but it's people looking at this data. We don't use a whole lot of artificial intelligence. We have people who are reviewing the logbook entries, looking over that data, making sure that everything is correct.
So as they're looking through the trends and they see something trending,
it's gonna send an alert to the customer right away, letting them know that they've found something and they need to look into this.
Yep.
And they'll even give them this is what we think you need to do.
Ah, okay.
So it even gives them advice as to what they think it is.
So if I buy a jet, right? Let's say I go to Bombardier and I buy that right off the assembly line. I'm assuming there's an assembly. I'm thinking
there is some
Ford factory or something from the 30s.
Kind of looks like it. Yes.
Right off the line. It comes with camp. Is that the default?
That's correct.
So why?
So we give at least a year free.
Okay.
For a brand new aircraft, you get a year free.
Okay.
And the reason why is because, number one, we want you to understand how important it is.
Right.
So that first year, you're not doing a lot of maintenance anyway.
Sure.
But we want to make sure that your aircraft is on there from the beginning so that we have all of the enrolled parts. So every part that goes down the line shows up on our system. We get that directly from the OEM. We work directly with them. And then that OEM, as you're doing that maintenance, they can pull reliability data right out of our system.
Okay.
So it's important for them to have those aircraft on because they pull, how often are we pulling parts prior to their life limit? Are they, and if they're starting to do that on a regular basis, they're either going to change how that part is produced.
Yeah.
They'll change manufacturers of the part. They might extend an inspection if they're pulling it and it's still in good shape. They might extend that part life. Things like that.
What's something that fails the most that like people might not realize?
I mean, if you pull any type of reliability data, it's always going to be tires. Tires is always the number. Tires and batteries probably the number one.
I guess
thing
they go through a
that
lot
gets
of
changed.
abuse, right? I mean, they're
Oh,
just
yeah.
like hitting the ground, like slamming. Yeah.
You don't realize that when you're owning a jet, just paying for it, that's just the beginning.
Yeah.
Because the maintenance is expensive, fuel is expensive, insurance is
There's
expensive.
operating it, right?
Yeah, the operating part of having an aircraft is very expensive.
Yeah.
And a lot of people pay somebody to manage their maintenance. So you're paying, somebody a salary
Sure.
to keep up with your aircraft.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
When you could just be paying camp to keep up with your aircraft. We will manage that part of it for you.
Okay.
We're taking that person out of it. Now, if you have multiple aircraft, it's good to have somebody who's like a charter company. It's good to have somebody who's kind of monitoring all the different aircraft. But as an owner, if you're using camp, we're going to make sure that when you go into that service center that they can just log into camp and pull up what's due and be able to create a work order and keep track of that for you so that you're not having to pay somebody to do that part.
Probably cheaper to do the camp thing than it is to hire somebody to like.
Yeah, however much you would pay for that tank of gas for that specific aircraft, that's about how much camp is.
Okay. Nice.
And a lot of people are like, well, that's so expensive. Well, you're getting a lot of peace of mind with that. And you're getting, we have field service reps all over the world. You have your analyst. I'm based at an OEM, so I'm based at Textron. So Textron customers know they can reach out to me.
Yeah.
And when you call us, you're calling somebody. We have analysts that they'll talk fishing with their customers.
Right.
You're not just calling somebody who's just, a robot telling you how to do things. You're talking to a person who understands what you're going through and might even be able to assist you in other things.
Yeah.
But we become friends with our customers. That's one of my favorite things is talking to customers over, I see them all the time.
Yeah.
They'll come see me at conferences because we get to know our customers. We're very close with them. So, and that's a very important relationship. And we want you to call us.
Yeah.
That's why we hire so many people so that you have somebody to call.
Yeah.
So if there's one thing that you feel like people should know prior to owning a jet, I know you talked about like you got to keep up with all the stuff, but like if there's one like big takeaway or one thing that you wish people would know prior to deciding to purchase a jet, what do you think that would be? If I'm going into this conversation, you're like, look, Derek, you need to know this before you start to even think about buying a jet.
When you're buying anything bigger than a piston, pretty
Okay.
much, you have multiple inspections. It's not a one-time a year thing.
Yeah.
If you miss an inspection and you get ramp checked, you're in big trouble for missing inspections.
What's a ramp check?
That's when the FAA approaches you and wants to make sure that make sure your aircraft is up to date.
Okay.
Just random.
It's random. Yeah.
Okay.
Come out and pay a visit and
Yeah.
make sure everything's snuff. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
It's just really important to know that what's going on with your aircraft because maintenance is expensive.
Yeah.
And you don't want to make it more expensive when you overfly something and now you've got to catch up. Now you got fines.
Right.
Or worse yet, you skip an inspection and now you have something fail because you didn't replace it or change it or overhaul it.
Yeah.
And you can't just pull over to the side of the road. So it's very important to make sure that everything is being tracked.
Okay. So an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that the same? Ounce of prevention, maintenance. Ounce of maintenance is worth a pound of replacement.
If you say it.
Yeah, if you say so, yeah.
Yeah.
That's pretty true, though.
Yeah. Okay, great. Is there anything else that we might need to know about camp, about aircraft maintenance, like protocol, anything else that you would want people that are thinking about owning a jet to know?
Your service center is not tracking your maintenance.
Okay.
Right.
They are usually just putting in your compliance. So they're letting you know this is when the work was done, but they're not telling you when it's due again. They're recording the compliance.
Okay.
They're not telling you what's due. So just because you go into the service center and get that done, you still need to make sure we're getting the data.
Okay.
Sending us those logbook entries is very important. You can go in and update the system all you want, but if those logbook entries aren't coming to us, we don't know that data is accurate.
Yeah.
So sending the data in is extremely important. Having the backup for your logs is extremely important. And we back up all of that.
Nice.
And if it hasn't been done, it's going to flag it, right? The
Yes.
system is going to say, hey, this hasn't been done.
Yes, it's going to turn it red.
Yep.
So you're
Yep.
going to have a red aircraft.
Gotcha.
If I want to find out more about camp, what's the best way to do that?
Campsystems.com.
Okay.
You can go to the contact us, reach out to any of our field service reps, reach out to our sales team. We're here to talk. I mean, the one thing that I always tell customers, because they're like, well, how much is your training? We don't charge for training. If you don't know how to use the system, it's no good to you. It's no good to us. So we want to train you.
Nice.
So all of our training is free. We have field service reps who are doing regional training events all over the country. So we want you to know how to use the system.
Yeah.
Feel free to reach out to us. We have people for you to call.
Awesome.
So it's very important.
Awesome. Lisa, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure. And yeah, keep I guess keep up to date on your maintenance on your jet is the moral of the story, and make sure you get a system to track it all, because if something fails and you didn't expect it, that's going to be a lot more expensive in the long run. So
Yes, very
awesome. Yeah. So reach out to Lisa at camp if you have any questions.
Thank you for watching Own the Jet. If you want to see more Own the Jet, make sure to subscribe to our channel on YouTube and leave a comment telling us what aspect of jet ownership you'd like to know more about. Own the Jet is brought to you by Aspen Aero Group, your trusted partner in private and corporate jet ownership. Learn more at aspenaerogroup.com. This has been a Savage Media production.